All right, everyone, welcome back to Low Budget Logistics, your logistics and supply chain explainer. I know it has been a while, a long time since I've recorded one of these. I got busy, right? It was peak. You can't be mad at me for that. But we've got a lot of things happening today. There are a lot of large news stories that are going on that you need to be aware of, especially in the world of logistics and the supply chain. Things that might affect your pocketbook. And if you're in the industry, you will certainly understand what's going on as we get further into the details. But first, sorry, I am technologically challenged. Please subscribe to the channel because it helps me, it helps us get this news out to the world in the most enjoyable and fun way that we possibly can. Because right now it's just me and my cat Taco, who's right here. Say hello, Taco. Yeah. And then producer Henry over there. Henry, do you want to? No? Okay, great. I know you're the kind of quiet, shy type. But let's get to the news today. Ooh, man, I really gotta work on this. All right. First up, let me move over here. We are waiting. We continue to wait. The biggest thing that's going to happen, right? The biggest news in the supply chain for this year is going to be the Supreme Court's decision on Trump's tariffs. The Supreme Court fast-tracked the, let's see, what did they fast-track? They fast-tracked the discussion process. They fast-tracked it getting into their books, onto their ledger. But they have been slow to come out with a decision. We expected to hear something back in October, November of last year. Here we are in February of 2026, and we still do not have any decision. The Supreme Court actually, as a matter of fact, has punted 2 different times on expected delivery dates for those rulings. Little inside joke there if you get EDDs. But you know, like all good supply chain things, it's an expected delivery date just sets an expectation. You can lose it, you can leave it anytime you want to. It is not a hard and fast rule on when you're going to get something delivered. But we know that because we work and live in the supply chain, right? What is at stake, right? So the Supreme Court is making a ruling on whether or not Trump's tariffs, specifically the Section 301, 302 tariffs, were legal, right? Or sorry, not those, the IEEPA tariffs. Whether what the president deemed as an emergency was in fact an emergency, and 2, if he had the powers to actually enact those tariffs, right? Because tariffs are typically a power that is resident in the legislature, not in the executive house or executive branch. Now, there are a lot of different tariffs that Trump has put out: Section 232, Section 301, Section 401. Those were all powers that were delegated to him for specific reasons, right? National security, national defense, what have you. IEEPA is under a different tariffing clause, different tariffing power, ruling authority that he might have. And so it's up to the Supreme Court to decide whether or not the legislature actually gave him those powers to enact tariffs on the world back in the kind of middle to late stages of 2025. We are still waiting on it, right? Why? Because it could mean a lot of money, right? The U.S. has been said to have reported something to the effect of $1 trillion based off of those tariffs coming into the Treasury. And so if there is a ruling, the big question is whether or not they were legal, if he had the power and authority to enact those tariffs. And then secondly, if those tariffs are not legal, whether or not importers are going to get that money back, or at least in some form or fashion. A lot of questions right now waiting on the Supreme Court to answer them. Again, they continue to punt the ball downfield. I would imagine there's probably some internal division within the court that is necessitating these types of delays. I personally am waiting with bated breath. I know that I was importing at 50 to 80% of cost of goods back in, let's see, when was it? April, May of last year. So it would be nice if the company I was working for got some of those back, right? So that is important news number 1. We won't really belabor that point, but hopefully the Supreme Court will stop doing what every logistics provider ever does and will actually give us what we want, right? Not just keep kicking the can down the curb. We need an answer on this. And EDD is an expectation, right? It is an expectation, not an inspection. It's an expectation. We should have had something by now. Get to it, court. Next up, trees are falling all over the place. In the last, I don't know, month, we have seen no fewer than three 3PLs going out of business. Several were, at least two of them were offshoots from larger merchandising companies. And so it was not surprising, right? Because running a 3PL is difficult. And if you don't have enough customers and you get too much churn, and then if it's not your primary focus, it becomes very, very difficult to keep up with that. So two logistics providers. Gosh, I'm really bumbling today. I'm going to get better at this. I promise you, I will get better. So anyways, three 3PLs have gone under. As I said, two were offshoots of larger companies. I think one was called Quiet Logistics, which was an offshoot of American Eagle, right? If you know that brand. There was another one that was a little bit smaller. And then more recently, there was a 3PL that did a lot of business in Canada that also went under. Now, why is this happening? Well, two things are possible, and they relate to each 3PL very differently. So the first few 3PLs, it wasn't their primary business. It wasn't their main focus. It was sort of an additional thing that they were doing on the side. Companies have difficult times when they're trying to manage two different businesses in two different worlds, right? It's not easy to run a business. It's certainly not easy to run two businesses, especially when you're in something as volatile as retail and apparel sales, like Quiet was for American Eagle. So just know it is difficult to run a 3PL in general. Margins are relatively slim. You have to really be able to do things very well and very efficiently, have large customers, and have a lot of intake coming in on those new customers to really make it run. And then the other one, the one doing business in Canada, really we're seeing a lot of shift in the market away from Section 321 tariff entries because of the way that the U.S. is now doing imports, right? So Section 321 has largely been a loophole that has allowed the rise of Chinese e-commerce giants like Temu and Shein to bring goods into the U.S., undercutting U.S. importers, U.S. manufacturing, and then it also is really kind of a burden on the postal system, right? What is Section 321? Not to get too into it, but I'm going to because that's who I am. Section 321 was a section of customs and tariff law where anything below a certain amount of cost of goods, and keep that in mind, cost of goods, under $300 was allowed to come into the U.S. for free, right? So anything that might have 50, 60, 70% duty, like tariffs on it, on a regular import, if it was under $300, well, boom, it came in for free. A lot of companies took advantage of that because they might be buying things in bulk overseas. When they're bringing them in for like an e-commerce order, they're cheaper, right? You're not buying a whole lot of things that are worth $300 over e-commerce. At least I'm not. My wife certainly is. But I like to live in a nice house, and I like to have my wife happy. So we do it. Importers now who have set up their business to help with those transactions, they find themselves kind of at the wrong end of the timeline of history, and they're going to have to go away, right? Or find some other reason to do it. So we're seeing both Canada and Mexican 3PLs having these issues where normally they would be importing goods from China into Canada and Mexico, or wherever into Canada and Mexico, holding those items and fulfilling them as singles for e-commerce distribution, right? Going to someone's house via the postal system or what have you. Well, now those are not happening. Importers are having to pay the full amount of duties and tariffs, and so it just simply isn't worth their while, and they're finding newer ways to bring their goods into the U.S. And really, primarily, they're importing into the U.S. directly and finding U.S. 3PLs. So there are some U.S. 3PLs, although we did mention two have gone under. We're seeing kind of the opposite effect, where larger 3PLs who are a bit more established in the industry are finding they might be turning away customers because there simply is not enough space. And adding new customers at some point becomes a little bit difficult. So those are like the major things, at least in the economics or in the industry, that may be important for you to know, because you might see things changing where things are shipping. You might see e-commerce. If you're a merchant who might have been using one of those 3PLs, you're now having to scramble to find a new place to distribute things. There's a lot of intake and there's a lot of intake and a lot of kind of learning that happens when the 3PL adds a new merchant on how things work, systems run, what have you, right? Because nothing is as simple as like plug and play. There's always some nuance. There's always some issues with what it is that you're trying to do. So you need to understand what's going on. There's some implementation issues that might happen. Right, things are difficult. The world that we live in is difficult, especially the logistics and distribution world. So that being said, it's time for me to start paying for things. Parabola. My good friends at Parabola have sponsored this video. They are the best. I cannot speak highly enough of them. They are the solution for everything that you don't want to do in your life, right? So the company that I work for now, big fan of Parabola. I'm a big fan of Parabola. One, they are the nicest human beings you will ever meet, guaranteed. They are on a mission to make business easier, right? To automate the tasks that you don't want to do, right? So in the case of a friend of mine who asked me over the last week, just got access to Parabola, want to learn how to use it to make my life better. And I said, great. We had a Parabola-palooza. Because, man, it just rolls off the tongue. And he's a salesperson. I said, hey, look, here's what you can do with Parabola. You can it automatically integrates with your Salesforce and all the leads, all the inputs, all the administration that you do in Salesforce to make your life easier, better, to close those deals. Parabola can automate them for you. So if you are interested and want to make your life simpler, Parabola, the easy button for you. Again, have your own Parabola-palooza. Let me know. And if you do sign up for Parabola, let them know I sent you because, boy howdy, YouTube videos are not cheap. So thanks so much to Parabola. I really appreciate everything that you do. All right. Now, we're going to start a new segment here on the show. You might enjoy it, right? We're going to be talking about acronyms because there are a ton of them in the logistics and supply chain industry. I find myself learning new ones all the time, and so now you will too. Oh, here we go. Can you read that? What's that word? So T-O-N-U, TONU is how you say that. I thought it was tonneau. It's not. Tonneau is a cover on your truck. TONU. What does it stand for? It stands for truck ordered, not used. It is the bane of any freight manager for any company where you might say, hey, I need 5 trucks on this day and you only need 4. Well, when that happens, you get penalized because why? Well, that driver had to drive to that place. Usually truck ordered, not used, TONU fees they're pretty expensive, right? They are penalties. They're punitive in nature because they want you not to use them, right? They would rather you underbid and have to order more trucks than to send more trucks than you not use, right? So, right, that driver, usually I've seen them in the way of $500, $600. It can be all the way up to $800. Although that's really where you start to get into detention. Excuse me. But truck order not used fees, basically paying the driver's rate for the day. The broker that you're using will probably take a little bit off the top as well because, again, everybody got to make money in this world. What did I do here? Why is there that weird looking dude with the weird looking toe? Well, AI is a thing, and I want you to remember this acronym. So, TONU. Look at the dude's new toe. I don't know why AI does things. That's weird that it says 2024. It's 2026. But you know what? You're never going to forget TONU now. Never, ever. I guarantee it. All right, friends. That is going to be it today. It's going to be a quick one. I hope you enjoyed what you're getting. I promise I will get better at doing this, although not very much better because this is just who I am. But I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you have a great time. I hope you've learned something about the world. I hope you never forget TONU. And I hope you have a great day. Please like and subscribe to the video. If you've enjoyed it, I'm going to start clipping these out. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok finally because China sold it to the US and now I don't feel bad about my data going anywhere. Although I'm not a weird person, I swear, I just act like one over here. But again, thank you so much for being here, being part of the journey of getting this thing. We are at 1,000 subscribers. I'm on LinkedIn. I'll put this on there as well. So again, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great